Ahoy, dobry dien, and hello everybody, and thanks a lot for the opportunity to present my view on the future of manufacturing, to be more precise on the future of industrial cobot technology, looking only at the part of industrial manufacturing due to the time we've got for the speech. My name is Sebastian Schlund, I'm a full professor at TU Wien, and I'm heading the research department on human-machine interaction and advanced industrial management at Fraunhofer, Austria. So I'd like to start with a brief motivation for the topic, then I'd show you my notion of democratization in terms of industrial cobot technology. I'd show you some research projects and examples, and I will conclude with a little outlook and hopefully some questions and answers from your sides. So where to start? Actually, I took two diagrams of cobot sales with me. On the left hand side you see the projected sales of collaborative robots worldwide, and on the left hand side you see the actual real sales. And in 2019 we've got projected volume of 66,000 units, and actually only 18,000 units have been sold. And as you see, it is expected that the volume in cobot sales, it's like growing exponentially. And at least looking towards 2020, 2021, these expectations for sure will not be fulfilled. And yeah, actually, what is a cobot? It's pretty much a machine like that one here. It's a collaborative robot, so a robot that is inherently safe. We call it compliant, that in case of contact, the cobot itself is slowing down or decreasing its velocity. So actually they are made for the interaction with humans without any fences. So we asked that question about the use of cobots every year within our Made in Austria industrial panel with about 100 companies, and actually the cobot use cases are actually at the pilot level or only partially existent in companies, or the application is planned. And if you ask for the main challenges in cobot use, you see that cost or return on investment is still a major factor, as it is the task allocation between humans and robots, of course the safety and employer acceptance in terms of using automation devices. So that's actually where we'd start with the idea of democratization of industrial cobot technology, because we encounter today this large gap between like high-arching expectations on the one hand side and actual sales numbers and use cases that are still well below the expectations. And I always compare this cobot technology as to a tool like a screwdriver, for example, that everybody's able to use, everybody uses, and actually everybody at the industrial shop floor has a screwdriver and can use it. So there we come to democratization of industrial cobot technology. With the term of democratization, we actually think about non-discriminating access to the design and the development and the use of technology. So it's about access. The second issue is that this notion is somehow important, as cobots are pretty much designed for very close interaction with people. And if you look towards industry, you see that the underlying paradigms today, they set very high access barriers in terms of the prior knowledge, in terms of experience, and that pretty much limits and restricts the potential for use cases. So cobots actually are an expert thing, an expert tool in shop floor, and that's our view on that. That's pretty much hindering the spread of this technology. Actually, democratization usually means another thing, and within our scope that does not basically refer to majority-based decision-making, rather to the access to vote and to create something, and to a certain extent also to pluralism and also to the sense of an open competition about the best ideas. That's basically important if you look at the term of democratizations from an industrial side. If you Google that, for example, democratization and then cobots or robots, you pretty much find one of the new ventures that create robot platform economies like IQKA, for example, or Franca Emica World or Intrinsic. So these digital ecosystems for robotics, they are, I think, a very, very great thing for the industry in terms to make money out of the use of this technology. On the other hand side, they are not what we think democratization should stand for. So if you compare it, for example, to a smartphone, you see that actually Apple created platforms, but Apple for sure did not democratize the cell phone or the mobile phone. So please don't get confused. We had a nice paper on that as well in 2019. So I'd show you some research projects and examples of what we do in terms of democratization of cobot technologies, and I'd start with one of the first projects we started in 2019. It's called Comima, Cobot Meets Makerspace, and there we actually placed cobots in a makerspace in Upper Austria, in Linz, in the Grand Garage. It's a project with great partners from Austria, and we made this cobot technology accessible to the maker community, so to interested laypersons, and asked them to create, implement, and share their own cobot applications, so that we might find applications that are interested for industry, and so that we could create a maker base, a maker community for cobot applications. And on the other hand side, we try to make this technology accessible to the makers in terms of safety. So we create safety concepts for makerspaces and in terms of the programming. And that's why a colleague of me, Tudor UNESCO, created an own web-based robot programming environment, called it Assembly. You can access it via GitHub or via the net, assembly.comimag.it, and here you see this robot programming environment that became very important over the last 2 years in terms of the pandemics, Corona, and so that the makers could play around with their applications beforehand, before they went to the makerspace. Actually, the good thing about Assembly is that you might deploy the code directly, at least to Polyscope, so to a UR environment. Okay, it's an online cobot programming simulator. It's completely open source. It's free and web-based. And of course, we ask you, everyone who's interested in that kind of endeavors, to join and to help us to create the code. When we went to the makerspaces, actually we discovered that the world of in-between situations, so between lab and factory, actually is pretty crucial in terms of safety. And therefore we started another project. It's called Cover, about safety for collaborative robotic applications in public spaces like trade fairs, for example, or maker spaces. And there we create these guidelines for this in-between situations. It's an ongoing project with the colleagues from Klagenfurt from UNEM Research. On a European scale, we actually try to deploy this idea of accessing cobots to a maker community as well. And this year we're running quite some cobot workshops for interested laypersons in eastern, northeastern, southeastern countries, in Greece, Latvia, Slovakia, Lithuania, and Croatia, in terms of enlarging the community of interested persons with cobot technology. Once again, in terms of democratizing that technology and making it accessible to much more people than today. So here we see actually some pictures of our last workshop in Zagreb, and I'm just reading the quote of Mihaela here. Thank you for the wonderful workshop and for emphasizing that knowledge of seemingly complex fields like robotics can and should be democratized towards wider audiences to foster inclusion, understanding, and innovation. And that's basically in a nutshell what democratization of Cobot technology is about. Thanks, Michaela. In terms of the human-machine interaction, there are some challenges too, and we try to ease the teach-in of the cobots too. So we employed a web speech API for the voice control of a cobot as well, so that you can teach it in only by hand guiding and voice commands. You see the console structure on the right hand side. And actually with that kind of multimodal interaction, so teach it by hand guiding and voice, we perform at about 50% faster in terms of teaching. So that's one step further towards democratization of this technology. And that's especially important if you think about the task allocation of tasks between the cobot and between the humans. Here we want to move towards a very flexible task allocation. We call it adaptive task sharing between human and the cobot, and therefore you actually need very fast teach-in processes, because you have to engineer everything twice, once for a human, once for a robot. And then you need some kind of worker assistance system to deploy changes in the work allocation or the task allocation very, very fast. And that's actually what we do and what we design as well. And on the right-hand side, you see a field study at a Viennese electric manufacturer. It's a medium-sized enterprise where actually the entire workforce tried out our new worker assistance system, and actually they rated it very well with a very excellent usability score. Talking about democratization of technology, I think nowadays we always have to talk about security as well. You probably are very aware of the safety issues with that kind of robots. Here you usually in Europe need a certification of a safe application, which is kind of labor and effort intensive and today very costly. And in the future, we expect that the safety, so the person safety, the risk to injure somebody, will actually be replaced by the security risks. Actually, already today, the security challenges, they might account for the safety risks. And here we wrote a nice paper at the DET conference this month in Budapest, where we actually looked for the security shortcomings of one of the cobots, and actually the manufacturer, they already took care of our findings and released like some patches, so that security is now much better than before, but it's still a very, very ongoing challenge to streamline the so-called IT and OT security to create really safe and secure systems. Okay, and as I said, here you see that the goals are pretty much conflicting. On the one hand side, we talk about safety and security. On the other hand side, we want to have accessible technology for, I'd say, everybody. Okay, so I'd come to a little conclusion. In a nutshell, what did I want to talk about? First of all, industrial cobots should be usable for everybody as a multi-purpose tool. They actually are today, but you know, there are some things missing that I presented to you. There's kind of a easy to use and intuitive human-machine interface. We should take care of easy programming interfaces. We should take care of safety and security, and have an idea how to use these tools. Secondly, as I said, industrial cobots should be programmable for everybody. The knowledge about industrial cobot applications should be available to everybody, not only to robotic experts. Industrial cobot applications are designed to be inherently safe. That refers to this safety and security issue. The fifth hypothesis is that industrial cobot applications are frequently updated over the air. That's what I expect in the future, even though The industrial people today tell me that that will never be the case, but that might be a point for the discussion further on. Task allocation between cobots and humans is done dynamically and ad hoc. That's what I showed you in terms of adaptive task sharing. Speeds and forces of cobots are limited by the user's responsibility and not only by guidelines. And teaching and learning between cobots and users is carried out mutually. So I'd expect in the future learning assistance systems that take care of the robot and take care of the human, so that both of the agents will develop mutually to a higher level in terms of learning. And if you do not know how that refers to new business opportunities, please Google intrinsic. For example, there are a lot of endeavors at the moment to create businesses in terms of, let's say, AI-based and easy-to-use programming environments and programming interfaces. And what I presented to you might be a step towards that direction. I thank a lot of people and a lot of institutions, and I especially thank you for your interest in the talk, and I'm very, very eager to hear and to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Dobrý deň, vážení priatelia. Chcel by som teraz predstaviť profesora Sebastiana Schlunda, ktorý je jednak profesorom na Technickej univerzite vo Viedni, jednak uznávaným výskumníkom a jednak aj riaditeľom programu pre výrobný manažment na Fraunhoferovom inštitúte v Rakúsku. So, Sebastian, it's my pleasure to welcome you on INOFEST festival. It's really a pleasure to have you here, because last year we had to cancel a conference because of COVID. So we finally we are finally able to meet at least online. So welcome.
Privash is společnost. I'm very happy to be at least virtually, if not in present. But I think once this COVID situation is finally over, we'll make it to meet each other in Slovakia. And thanks for the kind invitation.
My first question to you is that we spoke a lot about ecosystems and ecosystem thinking, and we spoke about startups and patent applications, and the trend is not really perfect in Slovakia, and I said it really mildly. So what are your thoughts about how to improve the cooperation between universities, public sector and state administration and startups and maybe other associations which are part of the ecosystem? So what works well from your point of view in Fraunhofer or in other projects?
I think it's an excellent question. First of all, I think all of us have to be aligned to tackle, let's say, the great goals, or the goals that are worth to be tackled. And as I come, let's say, from the field of work science, industrial engineering, there is an issue in bringing more robots, more automation, more cobots, more assistance systems into manufacturing to ease work, to increase productivity and to help everybody who's involved. And I think that's one of the great goals. And the second issue is, I think, to lower the access barriers in order to shape that process. You know, talking about industry, usually it needs some investment, it needs knowledge about the processes, and that's, you know, a challenge for everybody of us to lower this access barrier, so that every interested person, nevertheless, if he or she is coming from university, from academia, from industry, or being a lay person, can work on these challenges.
Thank you very much. And my second and last question, because we are a little bit running out of time, is that what are the biggest opportunities you see for investment in the current technology trends or manufacturing, or from your own research? So where to invest in the coming next 3 years, 5 years?
I'd say, and I think I'll emphasize that in the presentation you show afterwards. From my point of view, there are two major opportunities. One is in let's say, compliant robots, collaborative robots, becoming an everyday tool to be used like a screwdriver. There's a huge market for that, but there are still some obstacles. And the second issue is in digital platforms. And of course, there's a combination of digital platforms and cobots. And if you look at venture capital markets, at the startup ecosystem that's developing there, there are some people, I think, who have the same opinion, but there's still, an open market, an undecided market to be won. And at least coming from my background, that'll be a huge opportunity for the next years. Even though it has a large risk, but as always with big opportunities, there are always big risks connected.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this. We are really looking forward to your presentation. I wish you a really best day and hope to see you soon in Vienna.
Yeah, sure. You're invited. All the best wishes to INOFEST, to the audience, and have a nice